now to Parliament, because the Speaker, Bagbin, says he will insist that the right thing is done by ensuring that properly elected members of Parliament are sworn in. Speaking to the NDC's professional forum, he maintained he has the power to swear in legislators.
In the truth, I have nothing to fear. If you ask me tomorrow that I say yes, I said it. The decision of the Supreme Court just followed the position I took before even they delivered their decision. To become a member of Parliament, you have to be elected by the voter. And you have to be declared by the Electoral Commission. But you have to be sworn in by the Speaker. Until you are sworn in by the Speaker, you remain MP elect. So I was very clear in my mind that some of those re-coalition and re-declaration were completely null and void ab initio. They were unknown to the law. And so they were not properly so-called MPs elect and not qualified to be sworn in by me.
Well, Bagbin, he is receiving some support from the NDC's Professionals Forum. Its national president, Ambassador Sam Piale, has warned the party's elected members of Parliament not to dare try to change the Speaker.
For those who work very close with you, they see you as the Speaker of Parliament. But we saw you as a pivotal link between the NDC as a party and Parliament. You represented the spirit of our party. Anytime we spoke to you and with you, you had insisted that you wanted to establish strong and stronger institutions like the Parliament. And once again, Right Honorable Speaker, we want to assure you of our unflinching support for your endeavors. We want to be the first to dare say that our members of Parliament should dare not make a mistake. They dare not make any mistake in changing you.
Let's speak to Professor Ali Seydou. He's the head of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana. Subject this to a bit more scrutiny. This support Bagbin is receiving, and whether or not a decision to change him could prove detrimental for the NDC in Parliament. Prof, I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon. We've just heard the NDC's Professionals Forum warning elected members of Parliament not to dare attempt to change Bagbin as Speaker. A sound caution in your view?
Yeah, thank you so much, and good evening to your viewers. I think we need to assess this situation looking at two important things. One, the character of the individual we are looking at, his character, his experience, and his track record, but also the circumstances, the political environment we are in at the moment. First, with the character and temperament and traits of the Right Honorable Speaker Bagbin, I think he's one of the most experienced individuals when it comes to parliamentary procedure and the workings of Parliament.
Right.
He has been an MP himself. He has been a majority leader. He has been a minority leader. He has served in a lot of committees, and he has been the Speaker for the 8th Parliament. And when you look at what he has been able to do, people thought because he was an NDC, he has an NDC background, he would have been a little bit biased towards the NDC. But he has been very firm, he has stuck to the rules of the House, and he has been impartial. To the extent that there was even a time that one of the front benchers of the NDC, Honorable Mutaka, had issues with him, that he was not being fair to the NDC. So you could imagine such an even-handed, balanced person handling a very challenging parliament we've ever had, 137, an evenly divided parliament. He was able to steer it to a very complete end. So it's somebody with a track record, with the experience to be able to lead. The second bit has to do with the political environment. Will the ninth parliament be like the 8th parliament? The circumstances are quite different. We've seen that in the ninth parliament, NDC is going to have an overwhelming majority, and NDC is going to be in government. Unlike in the 8th parliament where NDC was in opposition and they had equal number of seats, now NDC is going to be in power. NDC has an overwhelming, almost two-thirds majority of the seats. So we need a Speaker of Parliament who is not only going to master the art of the game, but who is going to serve to some extent as a check on the overwhelming majority that the NDC has.
And you believe
so he, as somebody with experience, somebody with the track record, is somebody who will be able to provide that element of countervailing balance to the NDC overwhelming majority by doing an impartial job in Parliament. And I think both the majority and the minority side have worked with him. They are even members of Parliament, but also as a speaker, and they appreciate his frankness, his unique temperament, and his neutrality in this work. So I think he's one of the best front runners for the job. And if the NDC doesn't have any problem with him, the way he said the 8th parliament, I think he should be the one that they should go for.
There are insider conversations about an attempt to seek to balance out in terms of the power scale within the party across the various regions. And so, reason for which we are even seeing a conversation in relation to whether or not Alban Bagbin should still be speaker. There are those who make the argument that with Mr. Mahama from the north, they should be looking at someone from elsewhere to be handling possibly Parliament. Is that a conversation that can hold, looking at all of the considerations that should be made going into the 9th Parliament?
So I agree that there should be an element of balance in our governance system. But we should not sacrifice either ethnic or religious or regional balance on the merits of what? Expediency. It should be done based on, on the platform of expediency. It should be done based on the platform of what? Experience. I believe that there are a lot of portfolios, NDC winning political power, that they can compensate regions, tribes, religious backgrounds that had contributed enormously to the success of the party. You remember when Haruna, Idrisu, and Muntaka were removed?
Yeah. That
was also the undertones that were read into that particular removal. And up to now, the NDC still have those cracks very deep, and they are still trying to heal it. So I think that Alban Bagbin is one of the most qualified that we can have, and he can do the job. There were other very critical appointments that the party can make to compensate other aspects of either the identities, either it's ethnic or it's religion or regional, to be able to make sure that everybody have their stake and then move on. And NDC has to be doing this with 2028 in mind. We should know that Mahama is just doing a term, and they need a united front, especially the kind of bickering and posturing that we will see post Mahama. It's not going to be, if not one minute, it's not going to be healthy for the party. So I think they should pick the most experienced people to countervail the power that Parliament is needed to move forward and to project national interests. But also, there are a lot of critical positions in the party and in government that the NDC can compensate other regions, other ethnic, other religious groups that have played very critical role in government, in opposition, and bring them to power. So that moving into the next elections, push Mahama, they will present a united front and be able to win decisively that they have done in the 2024 elections.
Finally, what does this say, this conversation and the nature of it being so open, Many would have argued that perhaps this should have been insider conversations and not seeing Ambassador Sampiyale issuing warnings to MPs elect not to attempt to remove him. Some could want to read meanings. It could portend issues beneath the surface that we're seeing.
So I think that's the beauty of democracy. Democracy allows for stakeholder engagement. It allows for lobbying. It allows for agenda setting. So all those things are allowed in democracy. But the beauty is that, like I've mentioned, I thought this should have been what? An insider conversation of the party stakeholders to make sure that the right thing is done now. Because look, there's a lot of expectations from Ghanaians who have voted massively for the NDC to do a lot. And you need a lot of competent hands to be able to steer this country to the expectation of the people who have voted. One, but also two, the NDC need to perform in order to win the trust of Ghanaians in 2028. We always say that every election is a census on the performance of the government. And this will not be the time for experimentation based on certain identity lines. It should be based on competent hands who can manage the expectations of the people who have voted for the NDC and to make the NDC more competitive after 2028. So I think, one, people are allowed to set the agenda, people are allowed to lobby, people are allowed to do all those things. But I still believe that the NDC as a political party has all the track record and the people who should be able to sit down and determine these issues in a way that will make the party remain united, more competitive, and be able to meet the aspirations of the Ghanaians who have endorsed them overwhelmingly in this year's election.
Prof, I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon. That's Professor Ali Dussedu speaking to us this afternoon in relation to conversations about whether or not Alban Bagbin should be retained as the Speaker of Parliament. There's a lot of context that we should be putting all of these conversations which we've been bringing you, starting with the Speaker himself making reference to the fact that he will be swearing in members of Parliament, and then the election of the Speaker as well. Let's try and walk you through that this afternoon. It's quite lengthy, but we'll seek to provide a bit more education for you this afternoon with respect to what is expected to happen in the lead up to the official formation of the 9th Parliament. And so on the 6th of January 2025, what is expected to take place is the election of the Speaker, and then the swearing in of the Speaker, and then members elect will take place at midnight midnight on the 7th of January. But we'll seek to provide a bit more context for you, starting from what happens with respect to the election of a member of Parliament. And so the returning officer, as has become a subject of debate whether or not the declaration was legal or not, will declare the winning candidates in a constituency. He will be expected to forward to the Electoral Commission the endorsed writ and a note of the total number of votes cast for each candidate. From there, the Electoral Commission is expected to publish in the Gazette a notice stating the name of the person elected and the total number of votes cast for each candidate, and then as well inform the clerk to Parliament soon after of the name of the candidate elect. That is what has been happening. And if you've been following us here on TV3, we were making reference as to the EC presenting a gazette and a list of elected members of Parliament, bar 2, that is Dom Kwabenya and then Ablekuma North, which was what was transmitted to Parliament somewhere last week. Now, from there, this is what is expected to happen. From there, the elected members of Parliament, from among members of Parliament or whom are qualified to be elected as members of Parliament, will see to the election of the Speaker. The Clerk of Parliament, who will be provided this gazette with names of elected members of Parliament, will perform a roll call on the 9th to the 7th of January, and from that roll call, nominations will come forth from either members of Parliament present or a name from outside of Parliament, from which the MPs will be expected to vote and then elect a Speaker. Now, in terms of the qualification and eligibility of a person who can be elected Speaker, citizen of Ghana, attain age of 21 possible, and a registered voter as well, that is the qualification. A person who will not qualify to be Speaker will have to be someone who owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana, has been adjudged or otherwise declared bankrupt under any law in force in the country and has not been discharged. Also, to be of unsound mind or is detained as a criminal or lunatic and has been convicted for high crime or high treason or treason, and then as well an offense involving the security of the state, fraud, dishonesty, or moral turpitude, for any other offense punishable by death or by a sentence of not less than 10 years. Anybody who falls within this particular category will not be regarded sound to be able to stand for the position as Speaker. And lastly, for an offense relating to or connected with election under a law in force in Ghana at any time. And so with respect to what is expected to happen with regards the position of Speaker. Now, consent here where a person shall not be proposed for elections as Speaker unless the person has given a written consent to the clerk to be nominated as Speaker. And so even as the conversations will go, and this conversation which has already started with regards whether or not Alban Bagbin will be nominated again as Speaker, he must have provided his consent to the Clerk of Parliament to allow for him to be nominated and then elected as Speaker. If he does not agree, then he cannot be a part of the list of individuals who will be brought before the House for the members of Parliament elect to vote and approve for him to become Speaker. And then we can move forward with the procedure for election of Speaker. And so the Speaker is elected before the members are sworn in. The clerk will preside over the proceedings, which is what we've been telling you. The clerk first conducts a roll call of all members of Parliament, which I was telling you about. And then from there, a member-elect shall propose a person for election as Speaker. A motion to be seconded without debate or remarks will proceed, which will pave way for the election. Now, where only one person is elected, the person shall be declared elected without any voting. Now, if voting is to be conducted, it will be done via secret ballot if more than one person is proposed, which is what we saw on the 9th of the 8th Parliament and all of that chasing which happened there. Now, the person who receives the highest number of votes shall be declared as Speaker. Where votes are equal because between two candidates, another round of voting is expected to take place. Now, where two candidates obtain the same vote after 3 elections, candidates have to be withdrawn for new nominations to be made. And that's the process with regards to electing the Speaker. Now, the clerk will declare the result at the close of voting. The Speaker then takes the oath of allegiance, and the Speaker's oath, interestingly, is administered by the Chief Justice, and then there will be the election as well of the 2 deputy speakers, and that will be supervised by the Speaker for the election of the 2 deputy speakers, and they are not to belong to the same party. And so you'd expect one will be from the NDC and one will be from the NPP or an independent candidate. And then we can move to the procedure for the election of the deputy speaker. Essentially, the procedure which applies to the Speaker is what will apply, except that the process is supervised this time by the Speaker of Parliament, which I mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of the swearing in of members of Parliament, the members-elect shall take an oath of allegiance, an oath of a member of Parliament before the Speaker of Parliament as well. And so these are the processes which we will be expecting on the 9th of January 7 to take place before the 9th Parliament will officially be formed. And so a bit of education for you, and that's what we and decide whether the Electoral Commission should be ordered to undertake recollation and redeclaration. Well, the NDC's Director of Legal Affairs, Godwin Eduji Tamaklo, has been speaking in respect of the rerun at the Kwabenya constituency, making the argument that they will not allow the Electoral Commission proceed.
If you permit the Electoral Commission to sit in Accra and just overturn results in what they claim to be, like, according to them, either you use wrong pinches or whatever, there's a potent danger. The 2013 election petition, the Supreme Court, in fact, the then candidate Akufo-Addo wanted the Supreme Court to invalidate the presidential election result in affected polling stations on grounds that presiding officers did not sign. And he makes the point that the constitutional imperative is shall in the Constitution, that the presiding officer shall, and that failure should result the invalidation of the Supreme Court says no. It is not, you know, like a binary conversation. It's about the votes of people. It's about their mandate. And so you need to be extremely careful in taking a decision to annul or to invalidate the results.
So what's the next step for the NDC with regards to that planned attempt for a rerun by the Electoral
Obviously,
Commission?
the whole claim to rerun is has no constitutional basis, because regulation 39 up to regulation 40 of CI 127 provides the mechanism. Look, if the Electoral Commission even wants to be fair, the ballot box is there. Is it not there? You can say that, okay, let's agree to open it. Open it. And you open it in such a way that you can do the read, whatever it is, and assess whether when on the face of your pink, what do we call it, the pink sheet, the NDC obtained 200 and something, is it in accordance with what is in the ballot box? Right. There are a lot of mechanisms to resolve this problem than calling for a rerun. And you see, the danger is that if you permit this thing to go on, mischievous presiding officers can use this thing to undermine the electoral process. And that is why you don't do that. We should not permit the Electoral Commission or encourage them to do that. Look, I have always said, whatever we do today will be used against us tomorrow. And so we need to be very careful. At this rate, I can see deliberate incompetence on the part of the Electoral Commission. And it worries me a lot. It worries me.
So for now, what is the advice from the Director of Legal to the party?
No, we are not going to permit any rerun. Look, that Abokobi Center is our stronghold. Even the pink sheet.
When you say you're not going to allow a rerun, what do you intend to do? Because the commission...
I am keeping our strategies to ourselves, but we will not permit it. That I can trust you.
So, looking ahead to tomorrow as well, and that hearing of the mandamus application, the Supreme Court says you should be given a hearing. Based on the Supreme Court's decision, one would have even argued that when this recoalition attempt was tried on Saturday again, the NDC should not have been there, because Kwabenya is one of the many constituencies which have been affected by that Supreme Court ruling, and the hearing will be expected.
I think that maybe we may have to put it in context. You see, there were 6 mandamus applications. There was no reference to Kwabenya. There was no reference in the mandamus application to Obuasi East. But you see, immediately the Electoral Ablekuma North and Co. Techiman South, you know what they did? They quickly, behind the scene, included Obuasi East and proceeded to invalidate the previous declaration that was done, and now claim that there is a purported new declaration. I mean, why would the Electoral Commission be conducting its affairs in that manner? It is worrying. As for what will happen tomorrow in court, I do not, because I'm lawyer on record, I do not want to have any conversation. But I just want to bring you up to speed with how the Electoral Commission unjustifiably included Obuasi East into the conversation when there was no court order in relation to that. It's problematic.
For those which have been subsequently upheld by the Supreme Court, we're talking of...
the two upheld in Sawam.
And then Ahafo North.
Yes, and Ahafo North. We will know how to deal with it. Then the 4, they said we should file our responses, which we will do. Then Obuasi has already been declared and a winner pronounced.